I want to talk about mental health, and I'll start by saying I'm not an expert. This is not medical advice. I don't know much about the topic. This is my own journey, and I'm going to get into it in detail. And I've been told, in the past and a lot, like, don't talk about this, don't talk about that, that'll offend people, people misunderstand. And the older I get, the more I just get tired of it. I'm just tired of it. I'm going to say kind of what I want to say. And yeah, it's personal, but here's the thing. If as a society we're afraid to talk about personal topics, how are we supposed to grow in these areas? If it's ridiculously hard to get someone to open up about their own personal journey in one area or another, well, how are you supposed to look, like, have things to look at? Now, when I put my personal journey forward, it's not so that you can do what I'm doing. As I've said before, that's not the point. Even if you decide that what I'm doing is really, really dumb, and, to be fair, could be, that can be valuable, because now you know why you're doing what you're doing and not doing what I'm doing. Like, you've actually thought through it. It's not just an instinct or just something that you've always done. So that's the reason for some of this personal stuff, and I'm going to get personal in this one too. Okay, so mental health. I am very sure at this point that I have been depressed for at least 25 years. Man, that sounds morbid, doesn't it? But the reason I've always had this kind of philosophical, what would you say, like anxiety, this philosophical anxiety that maybe me or someone else is really suffering quite a bit, but doesn't know it. Like, what would you do in that case? There's this show on Apple TV. I watch a couple episodes or whatever, but it's like everyone in the world is born blind. And so that is the normal. But, a few children can see, and it just changes everything. Well, I've thought about it in the other sense of the reality, which would be everyone else can see and I'm blind, and there's just no real good measure to figure out that I'm blind, right? So mental health can be like that, especially if you grow up around people or people in your family or whatever that have mental health issues. Your normal may not be the normal of the population at large. And that's kind of a disturbing thought. Like, what if I really am suffering? I just don't know how much better everyone's doing. So I love thinking about those kind of trippy philosophical things. But I never really applied it to mental health for whatever reason, just more like my physical health and stuff. But mental health wise, I am now sure that has been the case, because I'm finally starting to feel some of the normal emotions that people I know feel. I understand now why people like social events and they like to do stuff on the weekends besides work, and I'm starting to understand that, because you do get little dopamine spikes from doing normal fun stuff when you're mentally healthy. And I'm finally getting some of those, and it's been really nice. I'm like, wow, there is a reward system built into this universe that allows you to feel good about doing good things. And man, what a gift. Like, what a gift. But But to live without that for so long, like, let me tell you, as I'm starting to feel these things, there are some things that I literally have not felt in like 25 years. Besides, my wife has been an enormous source of comfort, extremely good for my mental health, an enormous blessing. But even like my children, and they are such good kids, like good kids. I hate to even say this because it makes it sound like they were the problem, and they are not. They're just children, beautiful children. But, what happens when you have bad mental health is you tend to blame everything else for the stress. And there is some truth to that if your life is out of order, or you have something dysfunctional, you're in an abusive relationship, either work-wise or romantic-wise, whatever. But like, even my children, I was having a hard time enjoying them because I was not getting those dopamine spikes. So I was dealing with all of the chaos without the reward, and that's a painful life, right? All right, so depression, what does it feel like? It for me, it feels like you're sort of like trudging through a swamp, knee deep in mud. So you can move, but movements are costly. And so for me, like, I never did anything other than work. Work was the consumer of all my energy, really. And, around the house, I would help my wife with the children. So when I say work, I mean work at home too, because it was a sun up to sundown type thing. No matter how late I worked, when I got home, my wife needed help with the children. And yep. It does take a village to raise a child. I'm convinced. It's a much healthier structure. But in the modern age where kids have very little freedom, they are put into an adult world that is so rigid, they can't even hardly function. And, it really is like putting baby bulls in a china shop. Like, what the fuck? Is the problem the bulls, or is it the china shop? I think it's the china shop. I am tired of the china shop. And we're gonna get to that in a minute. But I forgot where I was. So there was that, and I'll just pick up here. I knew that I was tired, like, all the time. And it was really weird because I could go for these, especially when I was focused, when I was mentally focused, like at work, I could go pretty hard and then get home and just have no energy. Weekends, no energy, didn't want to do anything other than the bare basics of maintaining the family. Changing diapers and that kind of crap. Man, I'm glad I'm out of that stage. I got one that needs one at night, and then, man, oh man, that is a heck of a milestone right there, buddy. Get past the butt wiping stage. I'm like, go to college if you want to, but for God's sakes, wipe your own ass, man. That's all I want. I'll be a happy parent if you can wipe your own ass. But anyways, tired all the time, and then I'm like, man, what is going on? So around that time, like, the Fitbit watch was starting to be popular, and my wife got one, and she was doing the sleep tracker, and so we could see her sleep and the REM and all that. And it seemed fairly accurate, like pretty textbook. And so I thought, well, it's probably not perfect, but it does seem to be working. Well, I put that watch on one night, or a couple nights actually, and wore it, and oh my God. Her graph was so clean. So you had like REM, you would come out. Mine was so chaotic that like the program, I don't think was able to really graph it. It was just like a bunch of random points. I mean, it was fucking scary. And I was like, what is this? And so I started taking over-the-counter sleeping meds because I didn't want to do anything hardcore. I took Unizom and took a lot of it, honestly, 4 times the normal dose. But to me, it's pretty safe, and I don't think it's that big of a deal. And that like made it manageable. And so I started, my sleep started to really come back, but it was still like I still had all these other mental health issues and all that. Now, let me say with mental health, again, it's the reason I'm talking about this stuff so openly, because we got to start breaking out of some of these stupid societal boxes. Someone says I have mental health issues, and the societal judgment is, oh God, what's wrong with you? Like, what happened to you? All of that. There's this stigma around it, and that needs to go away. That does need to go away, because there are people suffering really badly in this society. Because I'm convinced that the modern world, in the pace at which we do things and the enormous amount of irons that you have to have in the fucking fire to even function in this world, is just unnatural, totally unnatural. Yeah, I highly recommend the book Sapiens. If you're unfamiliar with just how unnatural modern life is, it is unnatural. Yes, convenient, but oh my gosh, if your neurology is just a bit divergent in one direction or the other, God, life becomes rough. Because I just don't think that we were meant biologically to live the way we're living. I mean, when's the last time you saw a monkey driving a fucking van full of tools, getting ready to work in a sweaty mechanical room? It just, Nope, not for millions of years. Millions of years has any human even done that. All right, so where were we? Back to sleep. I started getting a little better, but my mental health issues were still pretty bad. Still wasn't doing much on the weekends at all, like not at all, nothing. But I wasn't as tired, so I wasn't napping as much and that kind of thing. Still trying to help my wife as much as possible. Life was just a grind with no fun, like no dopamine spikes. Okay, so let's see. I got to a breaking point, an absolute break. Well, no. Let me back up. This is interesting. Anyways, so marijuana becomes illegal in my legal in my state, which it always should have been, and never should have been illegal in the first place. Like, how in the world you can make an argument for alcohol looking at the track record of alcohol and think that marijuana is somehow the devil's lettuce? Oh, give me a fucking break. Like, yeah, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Like, you are wrong. And people love to point out teenagers that are, stoned out. Like, look at this kid. He just fucked his brain, and now he's a loser. Listen here. You take any teenager and you give them an addiction to anything. I don't care if it's alcohol, if it's porn, if it's snorting fucking Freon or spray paint. It is not going to be good. Overuse of anything is not good. You can kill yourself by drinking water, okay? Just get that right now. That it's all about balance. Balance. Yes, there are things that are objectively right and wrong. But in a lot of cases, like, balance is key. Balance. Like, you even need to be selfish in a balanced way, because if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to love anybody else. You know, common sense. Okay. So, man, I go off in these tangents. I apologize. It's just the way it is. If I had someone else to talk to, it would help. But the way I am working on getting kind of like a podcast going. This is more like a video blog or whatever, I guess. So sleep. Yes, cannabis. All right. So I started using it, and wow, oh man, you know what it did was, I think this is what it did. Is it like turned down some of the TVs in my head, because when you have ADHD, which is one of the things I have, it's like you're watching 5 or 6 TVs at a time, and they may not all be blaring, but they're there, and it can cause a lot of anxiety, especially in this modern world where we find ourselves, this version of hell, right? Because, you know, say you have something left undone, like a kid spilled a bunch of Cheerios on the floor, and you're like, man, all the other kids are going to walk through it, and it's going to be through the whole house. But at the same time, like, a kid needs a wipe, and there's all these other emergencies, and you got work calling you, and you know, you getting ready to go out on a service call. Yeah, it just snaps. It just snaps you, because you've got all these TVs begging for attention, and there's no moderator. Like, there's no, I don't know if it's like the cortex is not working or what. I don't know. But with cannabis, it was like I could focus. Like, I could be like, okay, here's my social TV. Bam. I was like zoned in. And with, and what's weird is it doesn't help me with sleep at all. But what it does is just put my mind into another gear. It's very, very odd. In fact, like, it doesn't help me with sleep so much. I have to be careful not to use it too late at night, or I'll have a hard time sleeping. It's just weird, you know. And that's why I'm saying mental health is totally a personal thing. Whatever works for you may not work for someone else. But yeah, and so I was able to finally turn down the other TVs to either off or very quiet, and focus on a single one. And it started to make me more social. It really, really helped me with meditation and all kinds of spiritual practices. It helped me with my kids, because when I was with my kids, I was thinking about my kids and not what I had to do for my kids to keep them alive. And I just started having fun again, and it was so wonderful. But I had some serious issues. So as I started to get my mental health back online, I now became healthy enough to take a dive into my shadow. Now, the shadow is a scary place for sure, because that's where you keep all your monsters, all of the things that you were told to never express. That is your shadow. And they're not necessarily bad things, you know, like if you were artistic and your dad came to you and was like, you know what, boy, you're going to be turning wrenches. A lot of us came from that kind of world, right? That was the post-World War II trauma right there. That art, that artist person, that artist persona, that's now in your shadow, and it can stay there till you die. Some things in the shadow never come out. And so being healthy enough to now dive into my shadow, now it appeared like my mental health was a bit chaotic, even despite my breakthroughs. But what it actually was is I was finally healthy enough to start to open the closets. And when you open the closets and you find I don't know, like some dead bodies in there, fuck dead possums and all kinds of shit. You're like, oh boy. So there can be these moments as you're getting your mental health together that it becomes hard, and that's because, at least my experience was, that you're finally starting to do some real work, because because you're healthy enough to get out of the wheelchair and actually like try to go hiking, so to speak. All right, so I had a mental breakdown at the beach, like, oh my God, like near panic attack. I just felt suffocated, because I just felt like I can't, like, how can I raise these 4 kids? Again, my kids are not the problem. They are not the problem. Want to be very clear about that. But like, I was overwhelmed. I just didn't know, like, how can I do this? At that time, my wife and I, like, every year that goes by, we've been married for 15 years, we learn a ton. And so even though we had a quote unquote good relationship, we still had a lot to learn, and we still have a lot to learn. But our parenting was imbalanced, and that was causing a lot of stress, and rightfully so. That's not really my wife's fault, but working the kind of hours we do in HVAC and having such horrible sleep and mental health, like she did, like, her primary job, because she wasn't in the workforce at that time, was just to take care of the kids. So it was hard on a beach trip where I would come in as another parent and try to put my values into the family. It just created a lot of conflict. And so I had this mental breakdown, and that was great. To be honest, man, I've been so thankful for every time I've just gotten my ass fucking beat in the cage. Because, man, I think to myself, if that had never happened, like, I could still be lost and go another 40 years with these mental health problems. But because I broke, I went and I found this wonderful doctor. Just really providence. It never should have worked out that way, because no one was taking clients, and I didn't have a chance in hell of even getting in anywhere. And this random, this random, like, Carillion down in this random place took me, because this old man wants this really interesting, like, country style doctor set my finger one time for me, even though, like, they were, it was like 5 minutes to quitting time. He just felt sorry for me because I heard it on a job, and I needed help. But because that old guy had done that, and he had long since retired, but because I was somewhere in the computer, I got in. And I'll say this right now. Every conservative that says we have wonderful health care over here, and, like, you don't want to go to Canada because all they have is lines, I don't know. I don't know about that, I've heard a lot of people, especially on Reddit, from Canada, say that's not the case. So do with that what you will. But got in there, great doctor. And the reason I say that is because I can tell that she is fully educated in the medical system, but has done lots of personal development herself. Because I think these mental health issues and things, you have to have a multifaceted approach. Just like in HVAC, we don't, like, hook up to a unit and be like, oh, it's a bit low on Freon, like, let me just throw that in there and walk away. No, you hook up to the unit, it's a bit low on Freon, you throw it in there, and then you're like, wait a second, where is my superheat? I had no subcooling, but now I've got no superheat. Oh, they haven't changed the air filter in 3 fucking years. Even though they told you they did it last month, and they were so sure. I mean, they were so sure that they had done it last month, and you just took their word for it. So, it's a multifaceted approach. You have to stay with it, and you have to hit it from different angles. And I appreciated that. I appreciated the idea that, there's more than one solution. But that being said, the imbalance in the Bible Belt and in the trades and all of that is that the only thing I'm going to do for my mental health is renew my mind, or, some other bullshit, like Christianese thing. And look, if your mental health is mild, I shouldn't have even said bullshit, because I do believe that is a huge, huge help. And I do want to go into that. But it is straight up wrong to say that no one needs medication. Nah, sorry. Like, you got a heart problem, you're on blood thinners, but I can't be on something for my brain. Like, isn't the brain an organ? Like, what's the problem there? Like, so I got on Zoloft, and wow, like, I was like, man, this is all right. And to be fair, not everyone does good on Zoloft, but my normal was so hellish that I honestly think I could have taken any antidepressant and felt wonderful. So the Zoloft was great. And of course, I'm still using cannabis. I've thought about microdosing on psilocybin, although, I have done things like heroic doses. But I don't know, like, I kind of like the idea of dealing with receptors and not necessarily increasing serotonin. But there have been some promising studies. I don't know. I'm good enough now, so why fix something that's not broken? I'm still having all these sleeping issues, and sleep does really affect your mental health. So, a while back, I got on Wellbutrin as well, which is like an anti-anxiety medication that can be used for ADHD. And let me tell you right now, I already knew from using cannabis that I did not need a stimulant for ADHD. I did not need Adderall. Let me tell you, like, I don't want to touch. And this is just me, knowing me and my like my propensities, the things I could get addicted to, like the things that are not wise for me. Everyone has that collection of stuff. Whatever's not good for you, stay away from it. I don't believe stimulants are good. I have never really tried one other than caffeine, but I don't need that. I do not need that. What I need is for my brain to slow down enough for me to focus on a single TV. I do not need a fucking stimulant. So, Wellbutrin, as I looked into that medication, I thought, okay, like, here's a medication that's kind of a downer, which is what I want, and it deals with anxiety and has this other kind of secondary use of ADHD. I started taking that, and then all of a sudden, my Unizon, I was tired and like sluggish. Why? And then I cut my Unizon dose in half, and I still kind of felt that way. And then I stopped taking it, and I was like, wow. I would wake up in the morning and be like, you know what? I think I slept. And it was way better than the Unizon sleep. Okay? And so, wow. Like, yeah. And in a way, it's sad that it's taken me so long to get this basic stuff in order. But it's also the reason that I'm talking about it, because I don't remember anyone talking to me about mental health, really. This is all something I had to do on my own, completely on my own, because I was raised under the mindset of, like, you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And I don't fault my parents for that at all. I honestly think they did the best they could, and I have nothing real critical to say. It's not a critique, it's just the truth, right? Because, again, this World War II trauma, man, oh man, like, that has to be understood in order to understand great-grandparents, grandparents, and then finally your parents. I don't believe that my parents or anybody's parents should really feel guilty. Most of them did the absolute best they could. And yes, some of them were monsters and predators, and we had to deal with those and put them in the judicial system. But anyways, it is true, however, that your diet of thoughts, it makes a big difference, okay? Case in point, a panic attack. Like, you can have no real threat, like tangible, like a grizzly bear gnawing at your leg, but your body is still releasing a lot of the same hormones, or all of the same hormones that you would get if that were the case. And that can be damaging to your health, because there are things that happen when you are under extreme amounts of stress. As counterintuitive as it sounds, one thing that does happen is your immune system drops out, and that's because a big stressor of early mammals and humans also was just not having food. And when you don't have food, like, you need to drop your immune system in order to maintain body heat. And this happens with elk. It's been very well documented. In fact, well, I shouldn't go into that. That's too long a story. But yeah, so you do need to watch your thought life, because now a panic attack may be non-controllable, right? But it's still important to understand that you can have many panic attacks that are controllable. It's just the result of some kind of like thought that you keep feeding on. And so I've worked really, really hard on that, like super hard. A lot of my spirituality does get into the mind and meditation and all of those things. Again, multifaceted. So that has been priceless, as important as the medication, as important. So there's that, there's sleep, and all of those things combined to really help me have a functional, a functional life, a more functional life. Now, the last thing I want to say real quick is, just because you start to get healthy doesn't mean that you're not going to have setbacks. Even after years of being healthy, you can still get sick. I still have bouts of depression that give me problems, and I have to get through them. I'm better equipped now, but life is still hard, right? And it just kind of is what it is. But now I have tools. It's like my heat pump broke, and instead of trying to work on it with the screwdriver, I now have tools. That's nice. And it doesn't mean that nothing's going to break and you're never going to be pulling your hair out trying to fix it. It just means that, man, it is nice to have a multimeter. And so if you struggle with mental health, and look, life in America for the working class, let's just be honest, is pretty hard. Yes, we have a lot of stuff, but I'm telling you right now, and I've thought about this, if I could keep electricity for only the necessities, like running a medical facility and maybe like using some saws to put up structures and stuff, I would almost be fine with just wiping out. not in like a violent way or where it hurts anybody. Maybe I should just say leaving, like wiping that out of my life. I don't know that it needs to leave the world, but I would definitely consider that if I had a good community. Because man, you know, electricity, though it has been such a servant of the human race, is now becoming the master. And that is a problem, a huge problem. That's worthy of a whole nother video. But now we are a slave to it, a slave to emails. Like, yeah, that was convenient back when all we had was snail mail. But now, that email is like a taskmaster that is cruel as fuck with a cat of nine tails, just lashing you every time you miss one. Why didn't you check that email? I don't know, because I didn't grow up with a cell phone, so leave me alone. I don't work in an office either. So, I mean, what do you mean, check my email? I'm in this mechanical room turning wrenches. Like, sorry, I don't work at a desk. But, you know, it's, yeah, so I think I would rewind the clock. But because that's not an option right now, you might have to do some things out of the ordinary. I honestly don't believe ADHD is that much of a problem if we were to rewind the clock, because you don't have as many TVs in existence. You don't have a TV called fucking taxes or email, or, you know, yeah, if you have a dirt floor hut, yeah, it's not that nice, but you also don't have to clean it. It's dirt. So I don't know where the balance is, but the balance in my mind has got to be back this way, not further this way. Like, we don't need VR, we don't need this shit. It's too much. My phone does everything that I need it to do, and it started doing that years ago. I don't need it. I do not need it. I don't need all of this crazy advancement to go all the way up. To be honest, I think, man, as much as I love medical technology, if I could get rid of email, I think I would be fine with getting rid of a lot of research too. I mean, everybody wants to live forever, and I don't think that's the point. Like, I gotta die at some point, and I hate to face that fact, but I would rather live a good life and die a bit early than have all of this technology shit and like live a few more painful years because I'm doing cancer treatment that doesn't even really work. I don't know. Call me crazy, but that. So there you go. That's a deep dive into my own just shadow and deepest places, because I'm going to go there if it helps people. If you're struggling with mental health, the first thing is probably you don't have to go to a psychiatrist, which I found ridiculously hard to get scheduled, and like no one's clear about costs because you can't figure it out with insurance. I mean, a pain in the ass. Just go to like your doctor and just be like, hey, you know, these are my symptoms. Like, what do you think? That was the best way I found to deal with it. But obviously a psychiatrist, if you can get into one, because therapy is a vital part of mental health, and I've done that as well, because you can't just, you don't, again, going back to the heat pump analogy, you don't want the heat pump just to like be running. You want like the numbers to be good and all of that, and that's going to require digging in. And the way that you dig into a human heat pump is through psychology, right? Religion, spirituality, and those kind of things. So anyways, hopefully this was helpful to at least a few. If it was worth it. And this is a hard world to live in. So love yourself. Getting your mental health in order is loving yourself. And when you love yourself, you're going to have capacity to love other people. All right.